Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to a Wednesday webinar from the Climate Emergency Centre Network. It's a network of over 30 autonomous centres all around the UK working on resilience and focusing on community-led solutions. So tonight we have Andrew Maliphant, who is part of an amazing project called the Great Collaboration. He's going to tell us about the work they do. So over to you, Andrew. So thank you so much for coming. Over.
Great pleasure. Thank you very much, Phoenix and Linda, for inviting me along tonight. And good to talk to everybody. And I hope we'll get lots of questions afterwards. I'm just going to share my screen and put the presentation up for people to see. Is that all coming through all right?
Yep, it's black, but it's coming. Yep, it's there.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Here we are, interacting with your local council. There's a phrase from Northern England saying there's naught as strange as folk. And this is just to remind us that we may be quite varied in our communities, but there's quite a lot of varied people within inside local councils as well. So this is possibly why Linda asked me to come and give this talk, but we'll see how we go. Okie dokie, here we go. Types of English Council. On this presentation, you see something that's underlined, which looks like a web link. Yes, there's going to be a copy of this presentation sent around in PDF afterwards if people would like to follow up on the web links. So just a quick gallop through. Apologies if people already know some of this stuff. County councils are responsible for education, schools and so forth, things to do with transport, planning, fire and public safety. I won't read all these out. Social care, libraries, training standards. So quite a lot of things happening at a county council level. Then we've got district councils, and they have different responsibilities. We're talking about rubbish collection. Here we go. Recycling, council tax. They tend to collect council tax for all levels of council. Housing, dealing with planning applications tend to be the planning authorities. So in some parts of the country, there are unitary authorities to provide all the local services listed above. English devolution, which is something that's coming down the road at us, is that bill going through Parliament at the moment about it, means that unitaries will become the norm, that counties and districts will be absorbed into new unitary authorities, and we can talk about that a bit later as well. The other level of local democracy, parish, community and town councils. Parish and town councils in England, called community councils quite often in Wales, and any new councils, tentacles community council. There are a number of things that very local councils can be doing. My big favorite is to do with allotments, getting more allotments together, because there are lots of good things about that. So there's a number of things that can be done. Neighbourhood planning, also very important. A lot of neighbourhood planning in England tends to happen at parish council level. And I've got there section 101. That's not room 101. That's section 101 of the Local Government Act 1972, which says that any council or local authority can help any other local council authority with what they are about and their duties and responsibilities. So there's quite a short list there for parish, community and town councils. They can actually legitimately, with their approval and involvement of the other higher level councils, can actually work on things that they're doing as well. So you don't have to be you don't have to have, for example, the power of competence, which is a facility available to certain parish councils in order to do quite a lot of things. So that's just a quick gallop through the range of councils and what they might be engaged in. So who has local responsibility for climate change? I'm guessing that we're looking at climate change in this agenda and in this meeting and in this forum. As those will have seen the advanced blurb of this meeting, there is nobody, no branch of local government has got a statutory duty to respond to climate change. So the answer for who has local responsibility is no one. The Local Government Association carried out a survey recently and said that local authorities need statutory duties and powers and sufficient funding to lead on climate action. Okay. On the other hand, from the government's point of view, the local Net Zero Forum was trying to find ways to deliver climate change without any statutory funding and support. So that's very interesting. As we may be aware, UK government is not exactly overburdened with shillings at the moment, and so there are issues around how that might all work. So there we go. Now then, who's going to take on responsibility in the future? This is something we should all be interested in. Government's white paper suggested that following English devolution, climate change responsibility will be held at strategic authority level, which seems to be elected mayors, rather than at local level, perhaps our level, parish council, community level, which is where things tend to need to happen. So that's an interesting thing to be thinking about as we go forward. we're thinking about climate change and nature recovery. If the other things we're wanting to work with or speak to our local council about and talk to them about. This is a quick glimpse of some of the things that we're concerned about. Clearly floods, heat waves, biodiversity, nature recovery, and something that's increasingly becoming more talked about is food security and availability of food. So there are things that we might wish to talk about. This isn't a complete list. That just reminds us of the sort of things that we may be thinking about from this crowd, this forum, when we're looking to speak to our local councils. So something big and don't look good. Who are you going to call? Now then, if we're going to get in touch with our local council, there's, broadly speaking, two routes. We can speak to an employed officer of the council, or we can speak to an elected councillor. Now, looking at the various topics, it is in terms of a regular name of a job, of a branch or a department that would deal with the things that we're talking about within climate emergency centres. There's no necessarily common title or department that you can always say, I want to speak to the so-and-so department about things to do with climate change, things we're talking about. If you've got a parish or town clerk in your area, particularly in rural areas, and particularly if they've been in post for a while, they're probably very good people to speak to because they will probably know from their own experience who are the best people at other levels of council to deal with certain issues. So I would certainly recommend speaking to them. There's nationally, some districts will have a district emergency planning officer, maybe. Local flood authorities tend to be at county and unitary authority level, okay, and there's a link there to a group of them. We may also find other ways of getting in touch with the councils through other groups. Certainly in terms of biodiversity, you can get in touch with the Wildlife Trust, but local nature partnerships tend to have local councils as members of those organisations, those groups, and the same with local resilience forums being across the whole of the UK, not just England. So there's
Andrew, can you just briefly explain local resilience forums? I know what they are, but
okay,
folks.
Okay. Across the country, largely on a sort of county-wide basis, there are resilience forums set up by government to support us in times of emergency. They're supposed to provide us with templates for emergency plans. They're supposed to provide us with ideas about what are the likely risks in our particular area. And then we can find out things about that by clicking on these links. So say these links, these bits where you've got a line underneath a line, this is a link which will come around after this meeting, so you can look at and find out more about them. So there's different ways there. So I can't tell you exactly who to go to in terms of officers. Councillors, elected councillors, a bit more straightforward. You will find out who your local elected councillor is. Not every some councillors have come on to their councils with particular, either a single agenda perhaps. They're not necessarily looking at the whole breadth of things in terms of public service. If your local councillor is keen on the things that you're keen on, then that's fine, but they may be interested in other things as well. It could be tricky. And of course, some councillors, particularly in the high level authorities, are representatives of political parties. So that may also affect how they react and how they respond. So you might be thinking, well, who am I going to call if we're going to have a councillor or an officer? So where should we find out? How do we know, can we find out a bit more about who might be the best person to call? You can see pictures there from Essex County Council, who are obviously heavily engaged in things to do with the climate emergency. They have an action plan, they have an annual report. And certainly the gentleman with cabinet responsibility in Essex County Council for the environment, very approachable. I've spoken to him and he's very keen and interested in the kind of things that we're interested in at this forum. There are some climate action scorecards which have been arranged by another body which allows councils to, not parish and town councils, but district councils and above, to say what they're doing about climate change and nature recovery. And some scorecards can happen about that. If you've got a council that's actually scoring quite highly on the different elements of responses to climate change, then you might be better able to get a response on them on the issues that you're talking about. But there's other things that does the council offer grants on particular topics? What about projects they're running? Do they have helpful web pages? What about a local emergency plan? You may find something in a local newspaper article, funny enough, which says such an officer, such a council might be a good person to get in touch. If we can't find it very readily, maybe other people in the voluntary sector, other organisations, community organisations may be able to guide us as to how to get in touch. So there we go. So that's an interesting approach. So there's no single right answer, but we need to find out who is the best person to speak to if we want to be in touch with our local council. Just a reminder, really, about what councils could be doing or can be doing. Certainly in terms of community engagement, some of us have been involved in community engagement at different times. There are many different ways of doing it. Some people do it well, some people do it not so well. There are things that we would like to think that councils can be reaching out to us. Local area energy planning is something we may have heard of. This is something that again can be involved with our local council. They could be engaged in this. Climate action co-benefits, cool fit. There are other things, collaborative risk management. I won't read them all out, but there are a number of things there that councils can be doing. They are doing it, and they're the things that you want to know about. That's useful. If we want to encourage our councils to be doing some of these things, then that's also interesting information as well. And I dare say some of us may have some stories to tell when we get into the Q&A session. Okay. All right, so what about us? What can we do? My perception, my feeling for some time has been, let's not wait for higher authority. We need to get on with stuff. Things are happening to us. The climate change is coming on. There's needs for nature recovery. We need to get on with things at the local level. So there's a number of ideas I've put up here. Local authorities in England have got and in Wales, come to that, have got a responsibility to consider biodiversity in everything they do. They don't always have expertise to hand about what's important in terms of wildlife habitats locally. One of the ways that we can help out is having our own BioBlitz, which is where we get some people together with some advice and some information. We pick a patch of a place where we live and we investigate it in terms of what wildlife habitats and specimens of nature are there. This can be shared with our local authority, particularly if we're going through things to do with a local nature recovery strategy in England. There's also local environmental record centres I've come across, which actually can store this kind of information so that we can find out it, we can get it recorded for us at our county record centre, but we'd also, people, particularly at parish and town council level, who have to respond to planning applications that are doing with things around biodiversity, we're probably very glad to hear from us that we can come forward and help our local councils in order to respond on those sorts of topics. Certainly we can ask our local council for allotments. This is something that they're obliged to look at if we can. This is a very straightforward way of speaking to the parish and town councils. It's one of the very few statutory duties they have at parish and town council level. Let's get a local project idea if we've got one going. A new climate emergency centre. Obviously, we're talking a lot about that at the moment. Yay. Let's get in touch with our local council about that. So we've got an idea that we're doing. We're in the community. We're doing this stuff. Let's get in touch with the council, whichever level is going to work for us, and see where we can get food for them. A future fair. What about looking ahead? A number of places are doing this. You don't necessarily call it a future fair, but get people in from local organisations, local people, get local councillors involved as well, and let's see what we can talk about and get people engaged. And this is another way of bringing people from local councils into our community to talk about the way forward. Community Climate Action Workshop, there's a link there through to Community Climate Action UK, and I see Jules is on the call today. That is another way of getting people together within our community to talk about what we want to do in response to climate change and nature recovery, and again, get councillors engaged in that. Once we're having these discussions, we can think about having a working group to hold regular action meetings thereafter. There are different formats for that, particularly, again, at parish and town council level.
So, Andrew, just want to get that one level deeper. So if somebody wants to propose a working group, there is a process whereby they can propose that to the council and then work together with councillors?
There are two particular types of working group at parish and town council level. And I'm conscious that some of us, of course, live in urban, non-parished areas. Parish and town council level, you can either have a more informal working group, which can actually operate in the way that suits itself best, or you can actually have a subcommittee of the town or parish council that has to follow the meeting rules of that council. But the good news is then, with any luck, we'll be able to make recommendations from the council in terms of spending money. So there's a couple of straightforward options there, and we can provide more information on those if people want to be in touch. Joining the parish and town council, a lot of parish and town councils are short of members at the moment. Where I live in the Forest of Dean, they had a general parish councils election in the 40 councils a couple of years ago, and only 2 of them had contested elections. So if we wanted to get more engaged, to be involved, to be on the inside, if you like, there could be an opportunity to get involved with your parish and town council, become a member of that, and then you'll be inside that process, inside that system. Parish and town councils very much get involved in neighbourhood planning. Neighbourhood planning is a local element, which then links into our planning authority's local plan. So it is actually quite an important way of getting some of our climate change and nature recovery ideas established. Community emergency planning as well. There's a link there to a template for our community emergency plan in terms of what we want to do in our communities when something happens, and that's something also that town and parish councils can quite commonly be leading on. I've mentioned town and parish councils being essentially in more rural areas. If we wanted a town or parish council in our urban area, an unparished area, there is a process for that as well. We can invite our higher level council to consider that. There's a lot of work going on at the moment through the National Association of Local Councils, trying to lobby government when this new English devolution bill is going through to encourage this establishment of new councils to be well supported. And in certain places where district councils are disappearing, I'm thinking of Taunton. Taunton Dean Borough Council disappeared, and Taunton Town Council appeared the next day. They're setting up new parish and town councils. Same thing's going to happen in Cheltenham. I imagine the same thing is going to be at least considered and hopefully happening in other places which have been unparished. Under English devolution, they may be having some more parish and town councils in urban areas. Maybe not Norwich, maybe Colchester, who knows? So I think there are ways in which we can look at how we get more engaged with our local councils, particularly as the English devolution process goes forward. But above all, let's get weaving. Let's go forward together. We're getting involved very much at local level, which is something climate emergency centres do. Let's engage with our local councils as well. There's an image from a meeting that was held at Home Valley Parish Council in West Yorkshire. As you can see, there are different tables with different topics around, and some planning that's taking place, some actions going forward. Subsequently, there was a change of election, change of councillors, and some of the people that were involved in that were no longer on the council. However, that because there was documents, because there were some plans, because there were some records there, the new councils were able to pick up the threads and carry it on. So there's great things that can be done through your local council in terms of continuity. Some of us get involved in something, we can't always stay with it for periods of time. Maybe we move away, maybe we have family responsibilities, what have you. So there is a great thing about continuity, but let us go forward together. And I say this at the end of every meeting. I'm going to say it again. Let us go forward together. We'll never
Let us
surrender.
go forward together.
Thank you very much.
Dig in for victory, people. Dig in for victory.
Power to the people. That was a bit of a gallop through, but I've kept time to be half an hour. And let's have a lot of questions by all means.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Really, really informative. Kind of, there's great people within councils doing some great work. They're doing the best they can, and it's good to demystify the council structure. So I think Kate Aldridge had a question, but if people, and there's some other questions there in the chat, but there is also a format if people would like to. If you click the three dots at the bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A box, or might be a little bubble down the bottom, and you can put a question in there. If you type it in, then we can read who's next. But I think we've got a couple of questions already in the chat. But if people would like to either put their hand up or put something in the Q&A box, that helps. So we can tell who's first. I think in terms of questions, just to say, I think Kate Aldrich had one on the actual chat.
Yeah,
So
I can see that.
Do you want to answer a question? Ask that,
sure.
Kate, in your way,
Yeah.
to Andrew? Kate?
How far can we expect local councils to demonstrate leadership? Again, this is something about being out with strangers folk. There are still some parish council chairmen who think that climate change is all a con and it's not really happening. So there are ways in which we've talked about how we can get in touch with those bodies and organisations. What I'm doing at the moment, and also Phoenix and Linda as well, we're in touch with the National Emergency Briefing film team about what they're doing. They're providing a film to go around the whole of the country. And as soon as we've got the next steps guide from the NEB team, which is about what people do after the screening or following on from the screening, something which is very much the great collaborations involved in supporting people to get together and make a difference. then I should be sharing that information and some other things that we've put together, some guidance. We've done our own 10-minute film actually about what communities can do in response to the emergency. And I'll send that round all the town and parish councils in the country. So hopefully that will reach out to people and they can have that opportunity to get involved and possibly actually show a film. In terms of how they respond individually, as I say, best to get in touch with your local council. They do vary in terms of their priorities. Some people are saying, look, we've already got lots of things we're doing, we've got to do other stuff first. So it's hard to gauge how they would do it. In terms of districts and counties and above, some places, of course, where they're looking at being involved in reorganization, English devolution, some of them are quite busy with that at the moment. So again, what I would say to people is, yes, let's get on with stuff, but let's start something local. Let's get reading about it. Let's get in touch with our local councils and see what they can do about it. I would like to think that the more things going on, the more local councils get interested and engaged in this stuff. Interestingly, you may be aware, those of us that look at the national lotteries funding schemes, it's got the big theme on the Climate Action Fund at the moment is food security. Food security is something that came up with the National Emergency Briefing. It's something I'm particularly interested in myself. Let's have some more local allotments so we can grow our own food and get out there and so forth. What we're talking about with climate emergency, of course, is such a broad topic. There's so many things about it. There are people that and ways in which people can be helped and advised with support on different topics. We've got some stuff we're busy developing within the Great Collaborations knowledge base online. It's hard to answer your question definitively, Kate, as to how many councils would do it, but I think we do need, as part of what we're doing, to get in touch with them and make it clear that we expect them to be doing something. There are wings that we can do at local, even just publicising local things, helping publicise climate emergency centres. There's all sorts of things that can be done quite simply, but we need to get in touch with them as an individual and see where we go from there.
Okay, Kate, does that help? Do you want a quick reply?
Sorry, Kate, it was a long answer to a short question. Oh, she can't unmute.
Can't unmute. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we're just juggling systems here, so we're going to get the Q&A out first. So I think we'll go with Graham Stoddart, then Jill Turner, then Michael, then Helen, then John McClintock. And if you want any further ones, if you can try and use the Q&A system, just click in the little three dots down the bottom, or you'll find a question and answer and pop your question in. That helps us. So Graham Stoddart, and then Jill Turner with your questions.
Yes, when you introduced Andrew, you said that he was going to tell us all about the Great Collaboration, and he didn't say a word. I'm just wondering if you could explain to us what this extraordinary Great Collaboration thing is, please.
Okay. It's a fair cop, Governor. The Great Collaboration is an initiative that started in Herefordshire, where a local parish council said, why? Yeah, thank you, David. A local parish council said, why can't we have a process where people can make commitments and action around climate change and actually make it available, their commitment or the idea of their commitment available to the local parish council so they know about it as well. So that was something that was started. It went very well over about 3 years. It had about, I think, over something like 2,400 commitments from about 350 people across the county. That was also supported by a paid officer 2 days a week that went round parishes and communities and giving talks and so forth. The Herefordshire Green Network didn't have the capacity to take it national. It was always thought to be national. The national associations of local council and the Society of Local Council Clerks very supportive, but didn't have the capacity either. So we set up a new organisation called the Place-Based Initiative Limited. We took over the Great Collaboration. We've been busy expanding it. We've been adding facilities to it. Graham, who is also heavily involved, has been putting together the knowledge base of advice on there. We've got things that we're doing online with Hilo, which is a software program where people can actually share informations and questions between meetings. And we've also been supporting the development of county-wide forums in terms of personal connections and personal sharing some good advice. We've got good ones going in Essex and Norfolk so far. We've also got a developing digital map showing where various actions and projects are happening. And we've got an online link for that so people can put their own projects and their own working groups on the map. And again, Graham's been involved in setting that up. And that is something we're looking to develop further. Because the great thing about it, people ask me, Where's my nearest parish? Where's my nearest community doing whatever it is? And if we can get that on the map, then it makes it very easy. People can see where they might get some local advice, but also where they might join in. So that's a very quick gallop through what the Great Collaboration is doing. We've been doing a lot of work in East Anglia lately, and we're partly on the back of the NEB film screenings, National Emergency Briefing. We're going to be going more national, and so we're looking forward to being in touch with many more people.
Great, thank you, Andrew. That's good. And maybe someone could post the website in the chat as well. Jill Turner next, then Michael, then Helen Plowman, then John McClintock. Jill.
Hi, I was just wanting to ask what the impact of the English devolution and unitary authorities will have on parish and town councils.
Right.
Sorry to be ignorant.
Okay, make yourself comfortable. Here we go. What happened was government has been reassuring us, saying, "Oh, it's all right. We like town and parish councils. We're not going to change your role," but they're busy rearranging the furniture around us. At the moment, there's a bill, the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, going through Parliament. The community empowerment bit is a bit of a joke because actually it doesn't heavily involve town and parish councils, who are, of course, the nearest local democracy to the loyal public. The National Association of Local Councils has some members of the House of Lords to ask them to put together some amendments to the bill so that town and parish councils get more visibility. What government, brackets civil service, brackets whoever, seem to be keen on is neighbourhood area committees. They're thinking we'll have all these new unitary authorities. Everybody's going to be a unitary authority before we know where we are. And they want a neighbourhood area committee which can then help guide and advise the unitary authorities. When they were looking at this in Norfolk, they were talking about maybe having neighbourhood area committees up to 50,000, covering up to 50,000 people. So that's not going to be very easily represented, but they're talking about including things like local health services and other organisations as well. I don't know why government is so keen on that particular idea. What we're keen on, of course, is let's make sure we don't lose local democracy in this process, and so that town and parish councils do get a seat and involvement in those committees. There's going to be consultation in due course on the regulations for those. We haven't seen that yet, so we'll see how that goes. Within the town and parish council arena, as you may be aware, there are county-based associations. And in terms of if you've got a county-based association, they're probably a very good organisation connection to speak to their unitary authorities about matters that we're concerned about. So there's a lot of joining up. Joined up government is very rare in this nation. The government departments don't join up very well because they compete with each other for money at every spending review, and so on and so forth. And every government departments have different cultures as well. Home Office very different from the culture, media, and sport, for example. I take an example at random. So there we go. But so we've got to keep going out there. We get, the more we can do to be not only be local, but to support our local councils, the better.
Cool. Jill, does that help?
Yes, fine, thank you.
Okay, right.
Thank you, Andrew.
Case continues. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take Michael, then Helen Plowman, then John McClintock. And just to ask everyone, if you can use the Q&A box down the bottom, and I think Andrew, as a co-host, you may be able to see the Q&A box. We'll have to check.
Yes, I've got it on me. If we run out of speed, we can go to that. Yeah.
Over to Michael, then Helen Plowman, then John McClintock, and then the Q&A boxes. Michael, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for that. I think we also have to be very realistic. And not forget that councils often take they do take their directive from government, especially when it's on to do with climate, for example. I'll give you an example of that. Is that in Cornwall we actually have community assemblies inside of County Hall, and we have a 4-person team who we meet regularly with Cornwall councillors. We discuss about climate issues, and our community assemblies are passed on to leaders of the council. But more importantly, I think we have to recognise that I'm all for this going forward together, the great collaboration, but it has to come from a truthful base. And unfortunately, the government say we have to keep net zero and below 1.5 degrees by the year 2050, where in actual fact, we're at 1.4 degrees now. And that's according to Professor Tim Lenton, who was at the event in London in last November. So we have two figures. We have governments who say we have enough time to 250, and then we're saying professors like Tim Lenton, no, we don't have enough time. Now is the time to really act. And the danger is we get carried away with this idea of government's idea of when we should reach net zero. So and keep below 1.5 degrees. So it's a big issue. And I think, how we engage with council down here is we've been to chambers with councillors, climate activists, and we still have that 4-person team, and we still have our community conversations inside of County Hall. But it has to come from a truthful, and it has to come from science. If this great collaboration is going to work, then yes, it has to be based on truth.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And we're very keen that we need to get weaving locally. As far as government is concerned, we can't wait for government to make up its mind and do all these different things. We need to crack on locally, and very much this is where great collaboration is coming from, is helping at that level. Certainly the national emergency briefing in November and the film that's going around is being quite clear about some of these, the science, as you put it. What I would love to see is a bit more positive news from people in terms of, whenever I see somebody on the BBC, they're saying, oh no, we've got to 1.5 and we've got to do this, that and the other. We need to have some positive reasons for getting involved as well and getting that out, because that can be some of the way that the science is presented can sometimes be a negative. And of course, we've got people like other political parties having a go at the current government about net zero action and so on and so forth. So I'm absolutely agreeing with you. We need to be actually making it clear that there are good things we can be doing locally, and there are good reasons for doing it. And we're certainly going to be doing that on the back of the NEB film. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. Helen Plowman, then John McClintock, and then some other questions. Helen?
I somewhat feel that we've already answered a little bit the question, because when I told local activists who I know work with local government and community projects and climate projects, they were kind of like, yes, our local government is super tied up because it's a city and it's going to be joining up with another local authority to be a new unitary authority. So it's changing all the boundaries, and that, like basically what you were saying, they're very tied up with that. And so then I kind of am getting the feedback from the established people in that space in my city that kind of there's nothing we can do because, and I just wondered if you had any new perspective on that that you could help me with.
A number of those sorts of councils are allowing themselves to be tied up in all of that. Obviously, we're familiar from the press that councils, districts and counties have been concerned that they've got problems with funding and so forth. People within these councils make a decision about how they're going to spend their funding, what officers they're going to put on the job and all the rest of it. My strong feeling is that we can't wait for local government reorganisation before we start doing stuff and getting on with it. The more we do things, and this was certainly the thinking behind the networks we've been setting up in Norfolk and Essex, let's get stuff happening, let's get stuff going, rather than waiting 2 or 3 years for permission from somebody to get on with it.
I mean, I get that's how you feel, and perhaps that's how I feel. But I just wondered, maybe you could give me an angle. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. Inspiration as to how to communicate that with the people who are already established in the local government space locally, because obviously they're doing a lot of things.
Yes. As I've said, there's such a variety of people inside councils as well as outside. I can't give you a universal panacea. You just do this and you'll get your council's attention.
No, I'm not talking about getting the council's attention. I'm talking about kind of the people who my fellow activists,
Right.
how to have that conversation with them in an intelligent way, really.
Right. Okay. I think one of the most important things at the moment is communication. It's how we speak to each other and how we connect with each other. We've been doing some thinking about that. Certainly, some more positive messages would be very helpful. I'd be very happy to have a particular discussion with anybody that's having issues locally to see what advice maybe we may be able to give or support in that situation. I don't know if that's what you're asking me, Helen.
You just no, maybe just if I encourage them to look at some of the models that exist in other areas, but I guess with a city, you're not really working with cities at the moment, so
We haven't done a great deal amount with cities.
so
Carry on.
but thank you for your help.
Well, I don't know that I feel I haven't helped.
Stay positive, keeping communication open, and I think that's what I'll take away. Thank
Well,
you.
we've got to keep doing what we're doing.
Keep networking. Keep communicating how you can to get out to as many people as you can. So I think next we got John McClintock, then Robert Parry, then Jules. I think we're sort of alternating between the hands up and the thing. I just wanted to put one in there just to Andrew, particularly relevant to Climate Emergency Centres Network. When groups are approaching to try and talk to their council or get an empty building or build a relationship with the local developers or something about empty buildings, there's different names for different. I don't understand why there's no standard across all the councils. Like there is a property manager, there's an estates manager, there's the kind of, what are the names of the people who deal with? I know councils have got less buildings because of austerity, they've sold a lot off, but we try to point people to speak to the right person in the council who can link them to local developers or empty buildings, and that seems to be a different name. Sometimes it's the the estate manager, sometimes the property manager, sometimes why is there no standard across councils for different council positions?
I met a lady once, and they were looking at how you could standardize things on local authority websites. Local authority websites are probably dreadful, but if we wanted to find out something about, if you wanted to find out what contracts were becoming available, what things were doing, I said, why can't you have the same name for each topic on each council website? Good idea, she said, and but it hasn't happened. And again, the short answer is that I always think that local and central government are a bit like Mexican knife fighters. They've got each other by the wrist, and local government tends to resist any direct guidance from central government unless there's money attached to it. So sadly, yes, you're right. Each council has got different names for what is essentially the same role or department, and it's not helpful. And I could wish that had been changed. Whether that will change when we're all unitaries or not is a good question as well. But as I say, at the moment, we've got this situation between local and national government. And until that changes, until we get really top-down government from central government, if we want that, that's unlikely to change. I blame William the Conqueror in a lot of this, by the way.
Well, a lot to answer for.
Coming in and telling everybody, do what everybody does what you say. And we're so used to other people making these decisions and doing stuff that we've lost the capacity to really push back a bit. The French have still got it. Of course, where was William the Conqueror from? Anyway, never mind. Carry on.
I think the more we can clarify this, where the levers of power are, and demystify councils of people so they know the right people to talk to about getting use of space within their town or city, that will really accelerate helping get these spaces. Over to John McClintock, Robert Parry, then Jules, and then Ross Bromgrove. The back and forth there. John, thank you for being patient. Over.
Yes, good evening, Andrew. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts and your advice. Now, I'm from Camden in London, and like all councils across London and across the country, our council causes a lot of emissions just from its own activities, collecting the rubbish, heating the schools, using electricity, and so on and so forth. Now, what would your organisation think of the idea that a council should measure its emissions and which come from the use of electricity, the use of gas, and the use of petrol for its vehicles, and should make a plan, a multi-year plan, say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, that it brings its emissions down by, say, 6 or 7% every year, and that it publishes the plan. And this plan applies only to the council itself, its departments, and the emissions over which it has 100% control. Now, what would you think of that sort of idea?
Well, that sounds like very good practice to me. As I mentioned briefly, the Local Government Association, which sort of holds the ring between central and local government, did a survey last year, and overwhelmingly councils, and I don't know whether Camden was part of that response, said, we would like a statutory duty and proper funding, please, for what we're doing. The government has been, in my personal experience, resistant to the idea of giving people a statutory duty. In other words, they're obliged to do this kind of thing, because as soon as you create a new statutory duty for a local government, the hands come out palm upwards. Thank you very much, government, but you need to give us some money appropriately. So that is the sort of strategic issue that we're facing at the moment, and that hasn't been resolved. Government knows perfectly well what the Local Government Association survey has said, and as we may also be aware from our press and media, there are lots of calls on government as how to spend the money that it's got. So I can't offer you a hope that it's going to happen soon, but the point that you've made has already been raised.
Yes, but my point is that our council has a lot of scope for bringing down its emissions without having to spend any money. It can just use energy more efficiently. For instance, it can turn off lights which don't have to be on. Now, our council doesn't do that. It doesn't require spending money. If anything, what my idea would do is to save money.
Right, okay. So the people who make those decisions within Camden Council need to be persuaded to take that on board.
Right. Well, doesn't the local government association promote, or your own great collaboration, does not it promote these sort of ideas?
Well, certainly. But what I think I'm hearing from you is that this Camden is either not considering that or has considered it and rejected it. Do you know what discussions they've had within Camden Council?
Well, we in Climate Emergency Camden, we're a small group. We have put this idea forward, and the council, both the officers and the councillors themselves, they are not very receptive to the idea because they say, "Oh, well, we're following, the central government guidelines. We're producing our reports. We're monitoring. We're collecting the data. Why should we have to change?" So,
John, I'd love to link up with you as a long-term resident of Camden over here. I'm not there now, but we would love to see a climate emergency centre in Camden. If you could put your link for Climate Emergency Camden in the chat, let's connect and see if we can get the council to do some. I know what Camden Council's like, and we're all doing our best in various places. But great to hear you're campaigning in Camden. Let's link up. Just we're running on time here, so just maybe I'll come over to Jules there, and then Robert Parry, then Lucy, then Ros, then Julie. Keep it a little short and focused, folks. Jules?
Hi, Jules.
Hiya. John, I've just put a link in the chat for you to Camden's carbon reduction programs. They do measure and monitor, and they've made a 63% reduction between 2009 and 2023.
Wow.
According to their own figures. So, excuse me. So maybe just, we can have a look at that. Really, I just wanted to answer Helen's question about how we can engage with our local authorities, because I firmly believe that nobody's coming to save us anytime quickly, and it has to be grassroots, ground up, hence the community climate action bit in my title. But in terms of engaging with our local authorities, if it's a town or parish council, Clark's a good place to start. If it's a district or an urban borough, also our elected representatives are a good place to start. So get in touch with your own councillor, build relationships, and they'll likely be able to put you in touch with the cabinet member for responsibility, and they can often direct you to the relevant officer. So there will be a sustainability officer or a low carbon team, depending on quite what you want to talk about. And generally, they're really receptive and they're really open to help, because they're very limited in budget, they're very limited in capacity. So if we come with an offer of help, they're absolutely delighted to hear. And to give you a couple of examples of that, Vicky Reid is the Sustainability Officer at Uttlesford District Council in Essex. And I was talking to her and she said what a marvellous job we were doing in terms of community engagement. And she said she'd love to be able to do that, but she's only one pair of hands and she can't get out to see all of the respective groups. Equally, when we come with offers of, say, community renewable energy to support Camden in their efforts, John, maybe we can look at public buildings that might benefit from solar on the rooftop. Now, they've probably not got the capacity to manage that themselves, or the bandwidth, or the money, and probably think it costs something. So as a community, we can gather together and we can do those kind of things in support. We can hold community assemblies, and of course these officers are governed or guided by our elected representatives. So if we can demonstrate there's a significant community appetite, generally our politicians respond to that.
This is what we need: more cooperation and community assemblies. So, folks, we're running close to time, so I'm just going to hop along next to Lucy, who's been waiting. Lucy? Thanks, Jules. That's really good, as always.
Yep.
There's a wealth of info. Lucy in Reading, do you want to tune in there? And then Robert Parry had a question, and then Julie. Lucy in Reading.
Thanks again, Jules. You put it very succinctly for
always very good, Jules. Lucy, you need to unmute. Try and unmute again.
Thank you. Oh, I've got the thing saying, tell me that the meeting is being recorded right where it said unmute.
No worries.
It does that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask about Reading is a borough council. It's a unitary authority. And the thing that I really wanted to ask is to do with the size of patch that a unitary authority deals with, and the extent to which communities stand a chance within that, because it's a bit like London. Reading's made up of a whole series of small communities. And it all comes back to the council, and you find that there's one person who's responsible for it, if you're lucky, and sometimes they're even, as our climate aficionado is, they're part-time or on reduced hours.
Right. There is a danger of repeating myself. Try not to do that. There is the potential for having local councils, will there be a community council within unitary areas? There's a process of a community governance review that if you have sufficient people who would like to look at that, so that you have your own assembly as part of the local government structure, then that may be an appropriate way forward if all other avenues are not being successful. I mention that because it is something that National Socialist is encouraging, something it's trying to get more firmly established in the English devolution bill. And if we're finding that despite our best efforts, we're not getting traction with our elected councillors and with the authorities for whatever reason, that might be another approach that could operate. I mean, the big example that did this in recent times was Queen's Park in London, where they set up their own community council there within that borough, and that's been very successful. The other advantage of that is that you're able to raise some funding by being one of those councils to pay somebody yourself. So I don't say it's necessarily straightforward. The Reading Borough Council will have a bit of a say about that, a big say in that, but it may be something that if all else fails, it may be worth pursuing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Very good. I
Thank
think
you.
so. It's juggling here. Robert Parry, then Julie Strawson, and then Ros Bromgrove's last question. I think we might be able to get them into the last few minutes if people are happy to hang on for another 5 minutes past or so. Usually roll over a little bit, but thank you very much to Andrew and everyone for coming. So Robert Parry,
Yeah,
ask
thanks.
that question, and then Julie, over.
Thanks, Andrew. Earlier, you mentioned that you were in the throes of producing material that you were going to be sending
Yep.
to parish councils. Is it possible that we can also receive that? I mean,
Sure.
I'm working with our parish council on the national emergency screening, but it'd be
Yep.
really helpful to know what it is that they've received so that we could not so much keep them accountable, but perhaps be of some sort of assistance, and it helps to bridge the conversation. So is there a way that we can see that
Yeah.
information?
Absolutely fine. I mean, we've got a big focus within the Great Collaboration on town and parish councils and their communities, but the stuff we're producing is certainly accessible and available for all parties. And certainly, I can be very happy to share that through Phoenix and Linda that can come out to this group. No problem.
Right. And what, just so that I can remind myself what it is that I'm going to be expecting, what are you calling that?
Well, we're talking local responses to the national emergency briefing. That's what
Okay.
we generally
Yeah.
call it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Just to make sure we link that information up, because we're always in a cloud of way too many things to do and always need
Yeah.
more help, folks. So people out there for all voluntary help and support. If, Andrew, you can send that to Dottie, who helps us put the newsletter
Okay.
together, and anyone who's signed in here with their email will get the newsletter on kind of Sunday night to Monday morning. That would be very helpful, Andrew, because again, National Association of Local Councils, Andrew works with 300 councils and Society of Local Council Clerks. He's not representing them directly today, but they link out to hundreds and hundreds of councils. Over to Julie Strawson, and I think last one to Ros Bromgrove, if we've got time. Julie, thank you for being patient. Over.
Hello, I'm so sorry I missed your presentation because we've got our own Wiltshire Climate Alliance meeting tonight at the AGM, so I'm really sorry. What I wanted to just point out is that we are working at the moment, and I wondered if you know Salisbury City Council, Andrew, big at all. I've started a dialogue. We're getting somewhere. What the issue is there is they seem to be looking at us as a venue hire opportunity rather than a strategic partner. But what I've done, and I don't know if anyone else has tried this and had success yet, and I'm hoping this is going to work, is try to present it as an opportunity for them, because in Wiltshire they are doing really well with climate change, and they have actually reduced carbon emissions hugely. They've got really ambitious goals, and they're moving ahead quite quickly now with lots of programs. So I made the point, and this is the point, isn't it, everyone? I think, if there's something in it for them, they're more likely to do something and work together. So we talked about the opportunity for them to take the public with them if they present the film versus us presenting the film. It's much more I think likely for us to attract, from our side, it attracts the general public, right? So we're not speaking to the same people if the council runs the event, and also the council gets public in the room buying into their schemes that they're asking for funding for to prove that they can work. So I think that's really important and it seems since I've started talking in those terms, they're wanting to set meetings up and get together and discuss it. But has anyone else had any luck with that strategy? I just wondered before I...
Well, I have spoken to my local council, the Forest of Dean District Council, about this. And they say, yes, they're certainly aware of the film, and they're busy working out who would be the best people to host it. So I'm hopeful that will happen, certainly in the Forest of Dean District. The great thing about this film is it is an opportunity to extend the conversation and to look at move swiftly on from it to actually doing some action, make an actual change. Some of it is going to be quite alarming to some people, so that people need to be shown what they can do, and certainly working with their council is something that we're very keen to support and encourage.
Just very quick.
I'll keep in touch. Thank you.
That's a very good question, Julie. Thanks for putting that in. So I'm just going to say a little bit, pass over to Ros Bromgrove for the last question, and then Andrew to do kind of parting comments and sum up, finish in the next 5, I think, folks. So just to say, there are good people working within councils up and down the country at all different levels. And much as, sometimes people comments about the council. They're all stuck within their various different remits and austerity and lack of budget. We need everyone to cooperate on the climate, on the solutions, on community, on resilience for the future. Governments and councils can't necessarily come to save us. We all need to work together. And as the storms of climate change come in, the more we can build these resilient communities and have these climate resilience emergency centres, community centres up and down the country that are prepared with resources and ideas and skills and networks, the better we can weather the things that are to come and not just survive but thrive. If we can link up all of these centres with community assemblies that talk to each other and share ideas digitally, it's one of the biggest strategies in long term. Let's hope we can all get cooperation and collaboration going. Councils, local people, local governments, local businesses, everyone cooperating very, very fast, urgently now. So last question there to Ros Bromgrove, and then over to Andrew for parting comments, sum up. Ros, you want to go for your question?
Well, we have good news here in Bromsgrove, Worcestershire, because just today I've heard that for our screening coming up, which we've booked with a date, we've got £300 ward funding for it, and just yesterday a council officer came forward to co-apply for the hall hire for our large county hall booking, and it's all going ahead. But this is a little bit of a flash in the pan. They have got lots of staff, and we've been beavering away. We've got 4 climate organisations, and I think they're remiss in not having reached out to us. We've reached out to them occasionally. So maybe it's because of the unitary change that's not happening. On the question of food security, I'm a bit concerned that having allotments means that a few people have lots and lots of veg, and on big allotments, maybe we need smaller allotments, and community gardens are more important, and food banks. So thanks for your time.
Okay. Well, I think we need all of those things. So food security wasn't on the list in government's prepare campaign of things they were worried about, and it should have been. So how we manage allotments, how we manage local food production, obviously is big subject, but I think we need as much we can get in those things. We already import about 50% of our food into this nation. We do need to be looking at that, and hopefully government will start looking at that as well.
Okay, just very quickly then, before we hand over to Andrew for parting comments and summing up, we're hoping to get Paul Behrens coming soon, the Professor of Food Security who did the talk at the National Emergency Briefing. We've got some great upcoming webinars by various groups of people, but there's been a long-term strategy we're working on to try and link some of the 30+ climate emergency centres, another 20 cities wanting to get centres set up to link them with landowners and farm projects and growing food projects. We need to dig in for victory. We are facing, 40% of our food. I think we're only, sufficient in 40% of our food. We import a massive amount. During World War II, we every bit of spare land was used to grow food. We'll say some more on the WhatsApp chat. If you haven't joined, folks, we're going to have some tree planting parties coming up with a bit of a dance and plant some trees. Also, hopefully dig in some permaculture gardens or fruit-bearing forests. We need to get everyone seed sharing, seed saving and growing food wherever you can all across the country. So I think there's a national, the Hull started it. There is a community right to grow, Hull Council, and Incredible Edible have got a community right to grow campaign, and we hope to feature some of that again soon. We need to use every spare bit of land to grow food and be more self-sufficient. On that note, over to Andrew for parting comments, and I'll tell you about next week's webinars and we're out. Andrew, thank you so much for coming, really informative. Do you want parting comments? Over.
Well, I'm just going to put my email address in the chat. Helen Plan was saying we'd be interested in getting in touch with local groups. I think we certainly share information through our website about local groups and networks. We're keen to do that. If anybody else wants to get in touch up for this meeting about any of the topics, please do. And as I say, the presentation that I gave, I'll be sharing with Jules, Linda and Phoenix, so that can be copied around as well. And it is, we've got a big task ahead of us, but we need to crack on and get forward together. And I'll say it again because I always do. Let us go forward together. We'll never surrender. It's very important. We've got to keep going. Thank you very much for having me.
Brilliant. Dig in for victory, folks. So just popping in the chat there. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was absolutely fantastic. Really informative. A lot of learnings there. So just the upcoming webinars. We have real treats for you. Next 8th April, we've got John Fuller from Media Revolution, who'll be talking about getting the BBC and ITV to do the actual announcements about the national emergency. On the 15th of April, we've got Professor Hugh Montgomery, who's the Director of the Centre for Human Health, University College London, and co-leads the Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change. He spoke at the National Emergency Briefing. That's 15th of April. And then the 29th of April, Kate Rawls, who cycled all around South America on a bamboo bike, talking about extractivism and biodiversity loss. And on the 6th of May, Hayley Fowler's rebooked to then, the Professor of Climate Change Impacts at Newcastle University and the Tyndall Centre on Climate Change. And on the 13th of May, climate is a national security issue with Lieutenant General Nugi, who spoke at the National Emergency Briefing. All right, fantastic people, wherever you are, have a great time. Keep networking the solutions. Thank you so much to Andrew for coming and sharing tonight. Check out the Great Collaboration and also National Association Local Councils, and work with any group to cooperate. Councils, everyone, we need to cooperate for a sustainable future. Focusing the solutions and networking. Take care wherever you are. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Phoenix.
Thanks, Phoenix.
Everyone.